Hello and welcome to another edition of the Mexican Soccer Show. This is your host, Cesar Hernandez, and today we're going to be talking about Tigres, we're going to be talking about America, maybe a little about the NBA playoffs. According to John, we might be talking a little bit of hockey. Actually, let's not talk about those last two. Let's ignore those last two. Or instead, we'll finish the show with a little bit about the Europeos, maybe a little bit about the Copa MX and the CONCACAF Champions League final. Once again, I'm your host, Cesar. Wiso is somewhere in the desert, so I had to step in and take over for him for today. But before we go into today's topics,
when Wiso's here, there's usually a little cumbia to get me the rhythm of the Mexican soccer show.
That's true. Actually, I can bring over my guitar. I can do like a little cumbia, like little bass thing going on. But maybe we'll save that for the next show. But before we go over to the topics that we're going to talk about today, let me first introduce you to today's guest, Johnny Rico, about 3 miles east of me over in San Diego. How you doing, Johnny?
I'm doing pretty well. Don't mind me if at random times I scream out a goal. The NHL playoffs are happening, and my Ducks are about to start.
I might just mute you, to be honest. Adam, we'll see. And then over in Guadalajara, it's a little bit further east and south from us. We have. How you doing, Tom?
Yeah, not bad. I won't be watching any Ducks tonight. I'll refrain from the Ducks. Yeah, all good.
Nice. All right, guys. The big thing to talk about, we can't ignore. It's all over the news. Even though this team hasn't had the greatest start to the season over the past week, they've been stealing headlines. We got to talk about Tigres.
What?
We gotta talk.
Are we really going to start?
We have to.
Are we going to start the show? Are we going to start the show with a team that's out of the playoffs?
Yeah, because they're the current champions. They're the current champions.
Out of the playoffs. Let's 3 games left out of the playoff zone.
Johnny, okay. So they beat Tigres, beat Pumas 4-0. Tigres beat Chivas 3-0. And before we go over to Johnny's thoughts, because I know he's he's quite bothered about us talking about this team that's not in the top 8, but they're last season's champions. They have a huge amount of talent, which is why I have to ask the question. I'm going to go to Tom. I'm going to start with Tom on this. Tom, are they title contenders again? This team that, like Johnny noted, that they're not in the top 8, but are they title contenders?
Yeah, I think 100%. I mean, I think you wrote Cesar in that article in 442 about, there are certain reasons why, for example, at the start of the season, Tigres suffered. I mean, obviously the Christmas Day final, same can be said for Club America, but also, Tigres didn't have that extra bit of rest either that America had for the game put back. So yeah, of course they are. I mean, I don't know. You just look. I know Chivas had a few players missing the other night, but it's just how easy it was for Tigres. Yeah. And then against Pumas again. I know recently they've had a good record against Pumas, but Pumas were a good team, and Tigres are just swatting these teams aside. And I think the title contender. I think the main negative for Tigres right now is that there's a lot of games. They've got no gap now between now and what would be the final. At the end of May, they've got no space because of the CONCACAF Champions League final. So, but I mean, Tigres for me are the best team that Mexico has to offer right now. So, absolutely title contenders.
Johnny, tell us why you think that we shouldn't be talking about this team that's not in the top 8. And what to start this.
That was just some playful. That was just some playful banter. I don't know. I don't know if I'd put the title contenders just yet on Tigres, because they have a very important week coming up. Because there's 3 games left in the season. They don't have a playoff position just yet. They have to play the first leg of the CONCACAF Champions League. Then they have to visit arch rivals Monterrey. Monterrey are a very powerful team. And while facing Monterrey and trying to get a playoff spot, they have to keep in mind the second leg of the CONCACAF Champions League final. So nothing is a given right now for Tigres. They could end up missing the playoffs. That'd be great news for everyone else, because they are starting to really wake up at the right time of the season. But I think they're cutting it a little close with they might have hit the snooze button a little too many times throughout the season. They're starting to wake up just a little late. Like Tom said, the schedule is very tight. So this week will determine if we get to see a lot more Tigres, in the playoffs.
Yeah.
I think that's an excellent point you just brought up. Actually, just the whole scheduling thing of that. Yeah, I mean, it's not even the Monterrey match is clearly it's one of the biggest matches of the season for Liga MX fans, and it's gonna be huge for Tigres. But after that, they're gonna take on Xolos too. That's not gonna be an easy game. And also, again, they're gonna finish the season off against Querétaro, which isn't exactly the most daunting, the most difficult opponent, but I think they could be a little tricky, especially under their new management. So yeah, but like I wrote about too, like Tom mentioned that 442 article. Yeah, it's challenging, but I feel like if there's a team that can pull this off, it's Tigres. And especially with that momentum that they've had recently, I think they're fully capable of not only getting the league title, but also the CCL title.
Yeah, and Gignac's back. Gignac scored a few goals in the last couple of games, and honestly, not just from in terms of what he does on the field, but what he does in terms of he's the kind of the inspiration of the team. He's the leader on and I think that shouldn't be discounted. I think he's absolutely. We know what he's like with these scoring runs, and he was like that in France as well. And I think that now Gignac is back with a bit of form, with a bit of confidence. Jurgen Damm, the last couple of games, and then before his injury, perhaps the best form of his career. I think he's come on a lot as a player under Tuca Ferretti. I think he's helped him a lot in terms of the defensive side of the game. And I just think the partnership with Vargas and Gignac and Aquino's playing well. I just think it's all coming together at the right time for Tigres now.
Right now, I think Tuca Ferretti, if he's nothing else, he's a very pragmatic manager. He's a very cold and calculating manager. And I think right now the priority for Tigres is going to be the CONCACAF Champions League. They finished runners-up in the Copa Libertadores in 2015. They finished runners-up in last season's CONCACAF Champions League final. I think Tigres are dying for an international title. I think right now, if you tell Tuca Ferretti, you can have one CONCACAF Champions League title or a playoff spot, without a doubt he goes for a CONCACAF Champions League title. He'll gladly give up the playoffs. And with tough opponents like Monterrey and Xolos, 2 out of 3 opponents left, I think Tigres just throws it all towards the international title. And I can see them slip, especially against Monterrey at the Estadio BBVA Bancomer. So starting to wake up, but I think they're gonna throw all their eggs towards the international title.
I don't know if they would be doing that, because I don't know if he would really put more importance on that than a match.
Well,
that's a little tough for me to think that
he has 2 Liga MX titles in the last year and a half, and they've been frustrated at international finals. So, seeing as how they've already conquered multiple league titles in Liga MX already, seeing as they've struggled in international finals, I just think it's a no-brainer that they're going to prioritize the CONCACAF Champions League.
Yeah, but I don't think Ferretti's that type of manager. I think they're just going to go. They know now. I think Nahuel Guzman, before the game against Chivas, there's a video going around, and he's giving a pep talk to the players, and he's saying the Liguillas now, we've got to keep up the intensity. We can't let the intensity drop. This is now Liguilla. I think everybody at Tigres knows, regardless of the competition, it's between now and whenever they go out, it's 100%. I don't think they're going to rest players against Monterrey. I don't think they're going to rest players against Xolos. Maybe they'll get tired. Definitely, it's a possibility. The biggest kind of obstacle facing Tigres as they go for silverware. But I think in terms of prioritizing, I think most people at Tigres would say continental. But I don't think we're going to see that in terms of kind of Tuca playing a weakened team in the league.
I can see a guy like Nahuel Guzman just wanting to go for everything. He's that type of player. But Tuca is very pragmatic. Tuca is willing to give up the entire first half of the season because he knows there's no value in starting strong. He knows there's a lot of value in finishing strong. And I think he's that type of manager that would prioritize, that would look at what's really important and what he can sacrifice in order to meet the priorities.
I think the big theme here is that it's clear that Tigres are talented enough to potentially get 2 titles this season, but it's still going to be difficult for them. It's still going to be interesting to see how Tuca utilizes certain players for certain matches. But yeah, that's gonna be interesting to see how.
For example, I'll give you one example. I can see, instead of Aquino or Dam, I can see Damian Perez playing in the starting lineup, and that's
Alvarez.
Damian Alvarez. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
And that doesn't mean that Tuca is completely giving up on the match, but that would send a clear message that he'd rather have his stronger players in the important match.
I'd say there's no way he's going to do that against Monterrey. There's no way he could do that. There's absolutely no way. And then against Xolos at home, I don't think he's going to do it either. I mean, I can't see it. I think it's now for Tigres, right, from now to the end of the season, flat out. Let's see how far it takes them. Obviously, it's not going to be easy with the amount of games, because it's not just they've had this double game week, but if you go before that, they had the CONCACAF Champions League as well against Vancouver. So they've been flat out now for the last 3 weeks. Sorry. So, but I just can't see any chance of Tuca Ferretti doing this at this stage of the season.
Yeah, well, we'll have to wait and see. We'll have to look ahead to this weekend, guys. Let's move over. We've been talking about Tigres for about 15 minutes now. Let's talk about a team Johnny may or may not like. A certain team from Mexico City called America. Johnny, I'm gonna get they beat Querétaro 1-0. That's, if I remember correctly, they're on either 6 or 7. I think undefeated in 7 matches. And I think I know exactly what you're gonna say, but I want to hear your thoughts anyways. Is America thriving right now under La Volpe?
I wouldn't say thriving. I would say surviving.
How so?
Yes, surviving, because they have a very weak squad.
Mm-hmm.
It was, the question was asked if both Tigres and America are kind of on the rise, an upward trend, and I said yes, they are, but I think America's really weak squad is starting to reach what I think is their peak. I can't see America getting any much better than what they currently are. Mm-hmm. I see Tigres, still finishing the waking up process and really finding their form. But America, too weak of a squad to really what they're currently doing, which is just scraping out results against teams like Necaxa, Querétaro. Barely holding on to a 0-0 draw against Tijuana. That's the kind of team that America are at the moment. They'll be in the playoffs. I can't see them doing too much in the playoffs with the weakened squad they have.
Tom, your thoughts on America and their form right now, and perhaps a little bit about the match over the weekend?
Well, yeah, I mean, they've not conceded in 4 games. So, I mean, the start of any team, they're getting the fundamentals right, and I think La Volpe's got the defensive organisation absolutely spot on with late. I mean, I think it speaks for itself. I agree with Johnny in terms of, you expect America to beat Querétaro, you expect them to beat Necaxa, and yeah, they're almost in the playoffs now. I think that, the other thing, I know Johnny stresses the kind of weak squad, but the injuries haven't helped. That ban didn't help. I really heard him. I think Samudio has been a big blow. Because if you're playing a wing back, I think you really need. He's a quality wing back. On the positive side, Paul Aguilar coming back, massive. Yeah. I think they've missed him so badly over the last however long he's been out. Because he's been not just a top player, but he's one of the leaders, one of the players I think the fans identify with. But yeah, I mean, there's 1 or 2 positions in America where it's just obviously not quite there. And I think the defensive midfielder. We've seen rumors in the Mexican press about Guido Rodriguez from Xolos moving to America in the off-season. I mean, it's exactly the type of player that I think America are lacking right now. I mean, all the rumors suggest that La Volpe will be out at the end of the season, and Miguel Herrera is in prime position to take over. But I mean, I think we have to, those of us in the media, and I include myself with this, we were writing La Volpe off a couple of months ago. And I think we've got to give him credit for turning it around, because it didn't look like the players wanted to play under La Volpe, and I think now we're seeing that they are doing. I think there's been a reaction from the players. I think Lainez has obviously, I don't know, he's injected more than what's going on, what he does on the field. It's also just injected a bit of life, a bit of kind of youth around Club America, a talking point that isn't La Volpe, that isn't negative. And I think the same with Edson Alvarez as well. So. I mean, America, this would be the 11th consecutive Liguilla. I mean, it's incredible. The consistency that America's had is absolutely incredible.
That's nothing to boast about for America.
I guess the problem here is that it's while most other Liga MX teams, it's almost like Mexico for the World Cup. Just like you qualified, that's the goal. That's all that matters. But with America, it's not just, especially with the fans, it's not just about qualifying for the playoffs. It's just not in their DNA. The playoffs or just stumble into the playoffs. And I guess I could kind of understand that. I guess that's why some fans are bothered by the fact that they're just they were just able to get a one. But I guess at the end, go ahead, Johnny.
So, Tom says that the players there's new life in America. The players are rallying behind La Volpe. Besides the one or two players like Lainez, because Lainez was given the opportunity by La Volpe, of course he's putting everything he's got in there. But I'm honestly very underwhelmed with some of the performances, like Silvio Romero. He scored the golazo against Querétaro for the win. But other than that one play all season long, Silvio Romero has been absolute garbage. Oribe Peralta does what he can, but he's a professional. He'll work hard. He'll put in his work. But I don't see an Oribe Peralta inspired either. Mickey Arroyo, I've talked to you personally about what I think about Mickey Arroyo. If Mickey Arroyo were given the job security and knew that he had the full confidence of his manager, I think Mickey Arroyo could be like the star of the team. But the fact that him and La Volpe don't get along very well, I think affects Mickey Arroyo's play. So, not just because of the absences, just the entire squad is a mess for America.
John, actually, I want to ask you a question. So you mentioned earlier how you think that the current state of the team, the current roster that they have, that it's just they won't be able to gain that much success. If you were to take a guess right now, how far they'd go into the playoffs, where do you think they would finish?
I think a quarterfinal exit, at best a semifinal exit.
Oh, okay. All right, you heard it here from John. We'll keep that in mind. So when America makes it into the final, I don't know if you'll be happy or not about that because your prediction may or may not be wrong.
I'll tell you what, though, if you're not conceding goals, then you'll generally get far in the playoff. That's nice football.
Yeah, but that can only last so long when your defense is made up of Chepe Guerrero, Osmar Mares, and Eric Pimentel. When those three players are three of your five starting defenders, you can only count on that for so long. Eventually that's gonna, like fixing a leak with duct tape. It's gonna stop the water from coming through for now, but that's not a permanent solution. Eventually you're gonna have problems.
Yeah, but they couldn't have done more than not concede.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I guess. But I know, Tom, you're saying they couldn't do more, but not concede. But I also think about once again, that thing that I was talking about was just but that's not in the America DNA. It's just not. That's just not. I guess I'm trying to think from a fan perspective how they want to see a little bit better, even considering what that roster looks like. That they want to see more convincing performances. They don't want to see stuff even under La Volpe where you think it would be more exciting, but as we've seen in recent matches, it's not exactly as attack-minded as we thought it would be. But I can understand why fans would want just a little bit more from America. Want it to be a little bit more exciting and thrilling. And maybe
here's the thing. I know that the squad cannot offer anything better. I know that this squad, this is like what you saw against Querétaro. That is as good as the America squad is. So they're picking up all the positive results for what the squad is. They're doing their jobs. They're getting the results. But I can only see that continuing for so long. You're not going to be able to face Querétaro every weekend. You're not going to be able to face Necaxa every weekend. Eventually, you're going to have to face the tougher teams, and what they've been doing of surviving, I think eventually it's just going to run out.
Okay, well, it'll be fascinating to see how they finish up the season and how they're. I assume they're going to be making it into the playoffs. It's fascinating to see if they do make it past the semifinal round, because then we could go back to the show and then make fun of Johnny, I guess. But if they make it to the final. All right, guys. All right, guys. I talked to you guys about. I should have given you a little bit more of a notice on this, but one thing that I want to know, and I know we still have each team still has 3 matches left until the end of the regular season, but I want to know right now what each of you think is going to be the top 8. Which 8 teams are we going to see show up in the Liga MX playoffs? Which 8 teams are going to be fighting for that title? And Tom, I'm going to go over to you first. Tom, what's your top 8 right now?
I think Toluca, Tijuana, Chivas, Monterrey, America, Santos, Pachuca, and Tigres, and I think Atlas will be the team that drop out because I don't know, they've had 2 home games. I've been to both of them in the last few days, and Atlas needed to win one of those games. And to be fair, against Pumas, but against Santos, it was really, really lackluster. And if you look at it now, I think they've won 1 of the last 6. So, and I just think I know Pachuca are also in a bit of poor form at the minute, but I just think Pachuca have got the ability to kind of step out of it really, and I don't think Atlas have. I think Atlas, Pachuca at home, Chiapas at home. You expect them to beat Chiapas at home, but Atlas Pachuca coming up this weekend, and then Atlas go over to a Club America who hasn't conceded in I think 6 games now at the Estadio Azteca. So I see Atlas dropping out and Tigres sneaking in there.
I'm hesitant about your thoughts on Santos actually going into the top 8, and I'm saying this just because of, I think, how many draws do they have now? I think it's 9. It's incredible now, actually, how many draws they've had at this point. Yeah, and I'm just not sure about that.
But even that, you give Santos 3 more draws. That puts him at 24 points.
No,
24 points is still somewhat good enough to make the playoffs.
Although it's usually 25. It's usually 25 points. But I mean, you look at Santos and they've got America at home, which is a difficult game. But then Chiapas away. I don't know. I can see him getting points in them games, and then Toluca at home. All right, Toluca at home on paper sounds dangerous, but a Toluca team that will already be in the playoffs. And I think if Santos need the 3 points there, and plus I quite like Santos this season. I quite like what Chepo de la Torre has done. I think they've got quite a lot of good young Mexican players, and Jonathan Rodriguez is back from injury now. I think Giannini's playing well again, and obviously Forge, he needs a couple more goals, but I don't know. I quite like Santos. I think they're a pretty solid team, and really I just don't know what's happened, because I think if you look at the stats in kind of like the first half performance, I think they're like +7 goal difference over the season, which is quite a lot considering considering it's only like over 45 minutes. But then in the second half, it just it decimates it. It decimates. I think it's and they've conceded. I think it's 5 goals now between like the 75th minute and the 90th minute, and really Santos should be top of the league.
I'm gonna take a wild guess here. This is I don't, but some of the stuff that when I look at the stats here, and obviously you have to take a lot of these stats like I think it's good to watch the games, look at the stats, and mix the two. But one thing I've always noticed for the Santos matches is that on those there's a significant amount of players who tend to run a lot. You see on every week, like the players who run the most, it's a lot of those Santos players. Maybe it has something to do that they use a lot of energy in the first half. I don't know. I'm just throwing that out there, and I'm trying to figure out what's happening there in the second half. But I'm still
interesting. Interesting, definitely.
Yeah, but Johnny, what's your top 8?
I'm gonna go with Toluca, Xolos, Chivas, Monterrey, America, Santos, Tigres, and León.
And León. You're thinking León too?
I'm knocking out Pachuca, because Pachuca have not scored a single goal in the last 5 games. Not since their last goal was in Tijuana in that 3-2 win against Xolos. They have not scored a single goal in their last 5 league games. They have 2 important CONCACAF Champions League games against Tigres coming up that they're going to focus on. And I think that international championship game is going to take more attention away from their already poor form in Liga MX.
Interesting. Well, we'll see if we're like Tom says that Santos going to make it. We'll see if Pachuca can make it. And my top 8, in case you guys are wondering, I did actually make my top 8 too. I got Monterrey, I got Chivas, Toluca, America, Xolos, and then Pumas, and then I have actually, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and then Atlas and Tigres. There we go. I'm thinking Atlas and Tigres sneak in there. I know something about maybe it's because every time I see Atlas, I always assume they're gonna. I don't know. They somehow seem to be better than the sum of their parts. You look at that.
My only question to your top is Pumas really?
Yeah, no, I've been. I think that's another team that's kind of exceeded my expectations too. And obviously, I think you're gonna have someone like Nico Castillo, who's just. I mean, I think he's probably. I know he's had those injuries.
Is he back? Is he back?
I think he's supposed to be back. Go ahead, Johnny. Johnny, you were saying?
Oh no, Nico Castillo did not play against Tigres. I haven't heard anything of whether he's coming back next game for Pumas, but Pumas I think are struggling. I think it was mentioned. Who was it? I think Tom Harrison mentioned it. How Tigres just thrive when other teams go out and attack them. I think Valencia was very naive in his game plan against Tigres. And I think that's just the price to pay for a young manager, inexperienced manager. And I think this dip in form, I think, is going to make Pumas miss out on the playoffs, especially because as it is, at their best form, they're not a good away team. Their strong suit came at home, only at home, and even that is starting to dip now. So that's why I question your selection of Pumas. Leo, my big pick was home run pick there was León, because I see them on the rise, and they're only 4 points away from a playoff spot with 3 games left. They're the type of team that can make that push. They have the talent to make a push late for a playoff spot.
So what I was
the problem with León though is, like, even if they win the 3 games, they're still not guaranteed. They win 3 games, it gets them to 25. They're probably going to get in, but I just think it leaves them absolutely. There's just no error there. There's no room for error.
The teams that the León have above them are Morelia, who are more focused on relegation than on playoffs, Pumas, who are starting to dip, and then Pachuca and Atlas, who, I have nothing against Atlas, but I don't see them as big contenders to stay in the Liguilla. And Pachuca, I mentioned how they're just a hot ball of mess right now.
Yeah, well, I mean, I don't know. I think obviously you can't discount it because León, like you said, on the up. But they have to get absolutely everything just perfect. Whereas you look at someone like Toluca, and they get a win next game. I think they go away to Atlas. If Atlas or Pachuca win that game, then all of a sudden, León are struggling, and Tigres win the next game. I don't know. I just think it's difficult, but. Yeah, Pumas, I just think they're at the level, to be honest. I know you're saying Johnny there. I don't think it's the inexperienced coach, although I think Tuca Ferretti has done him over, Paco Palencia over every time pretty much they played. But I just think Pumas, that's the level, and I think you take Nico Castillo out of the equation. I don't know how good they are. I think Dario Verón, after watching him live the other day, I think his time's up. I think it's time for him to retire. He looks like a shadow of the player he was. I mean, for years, he was arguably the best defender in this league, and I just watch him now, and I think teams are pressing him. Teams are waiting for him to get the ball and pressing him hard. And I think that's the problem that Pumas have. Saldivar in goal, not convinced either. But yeah, I think just switching the subject to Pachuca, it's going to be interesting with Diego Alonso. I think he's coming up to 3 years with the club now, and it's almost like. It feels like this summer's going to be a big summer for Pachuca in terms of, do they want to keep going with Diego Alonso? Do they not? Will a lot depend on the CONCACAF Champions League final? Because if they've got the Club World Cup next December, then that might have an influence. But I just wonder if with Pachuca, is it time for him to move on? Is it time for him to move on to a different club? Maybe try his luck abroad somewhere. And is it time for Pachuca to bring in a kind of a fresh manager to steer the ship? Really, I think it's going to be interesting. Because
in Liga MX standards, I mean, that's quite a long time. I know there's the Tuca thing. Tuca's obviously been there but Tuca's his own special case. Tuca's a different animal.
Tuca took over Tigres in the Apertura of 2010. that's when he started his third stint. The next manager in longevity is Diego Alonso.
Diego Alonso.
Diego Alonso at Pachuca with 2 years.
Which is interesting.
I went over.
It's interesting.
I went over the stats recently because only those two, Tuca and Alonso, are the only two managers with over 2 years at their current job. I think there was 5 others who have 1 year at their job, and then 11 managers were hired in the last 12 months.
Who's the third longest? Is it Almeida or
Mohamed Almeida? Yeah, those guys were hired around the same time prior to the Clausura of 2015.
Interesting. So we'll have to see that. And especially, I mean, Tom, if you're bringing up Pachuca too, I mean, say that Alonso moves on, and there's also a decent chance. I know Chucky has, especially with those Reds. I feel like he's been getting more Reds recently. But I mean, it'll be interesting to see if they move past Chucky, and if he does make a move over the summer, which just appears inevitable every time there's there's a little transfer window. That seems inevitable for him to make the move. But it'll be interesting to see with Pachuca. That's something we're gonna have to keep an eye on. And quickly with Nicolas Castillo, I thought that I knew that he was injured, but I thought he was going to be coming back soon. Maybe I misread something, but that's something I'm going to have to do some research on because I thought he was going to be returning soon. But
he was in the starting lineup against Atlas, and then he pulled up in the warm-up. He was going to start the game, and Paco Palencia after the game said they're not sure yet, but obviously he didn't play over the weekend against Tigres, so I mean, is a doubt. I mean, it's just so big for Pumas to have him. I feel like you could make the case that they're over-reliant on him.
I mean, I guess you could make the case that like the way that he his role in Pumas is the same role that you would say like Aviles Hurtado has for Tijuana. You know, when you look at the tally of goals that they have, you look at what they represent in the attack. So,
but Tijuana has other attacking options besides Hurtado. They can get goals from Paul Arriola.
Yeah,
It's nice to have an Aviles Hurtado, but Tijuana have a lot other options. I don't think Pumas has the same amount of options.
Pumas' Paul Arriola is Jesus Gallardo. It's just on the left wing. But clearly they both like represent very, very important players in the attack, though.
Yeah.
I don't think Pumas has a Malcorra in their lineup.
We're gonna have to, actually, John. This is gonna be fun. Next time we hang out, we're gonna have to compare Pumas and Cholos. All right, guys. Let's talk about. Let's look instead of looking at the top 8. Let's look at the very, very, very bottom. Let's look at the relegation candidates, and I'm gonna ask each of you guys. You know, we're getting close there, and the relegation race is definitely getting very tight. It's getting quite exciting, actually. It's been a lot of fun to watch. Who do you believe? Each team still has 3 matches left. Who is going down to the second division? Tom, who's it going to be? Tom's at a loss of words, or his internet connection is not working very well. All right, we'll give this a little bit longer. Johnny.
Oh,
wait, Tom, you there?
Yeah, I mean, I said Veracruz from the start of the season.
Yeah. So
I'll have to stick with them, but you know, Chiapas at the minute are pretty bad, to be honest. You know, I think Morelia are also you know, not doing great right now. I don't know. I mean, it's a difficult one because all 3 of them are pretty poor, really. I mean, I think the outstanding thing from this like relegation battle is that you can absolutely pinpoint. It's so easy to pinpoint why these teams are in this battle. I mean, Chiapas and Veracruz are just from the ownership downward a bit of a joke, to be honest. You know, the way they run the club, the not paying players. Veracruz, the political side of things, the violent side of things, and then Morelia. Obviously, as soon as Azteca bought Atlas, Morelia was kind of the baby, and straight away started loaning players over to Atlas. And you know, Azteca, how committed are they to Morelia? I don't think they've invested too heavily in the squad, to be honest. So you know, that's why all 3 are down there. Interesting. I spoke to Santos Laguna president Alejandro Iraragorri last week, and you know, he was quite explicit in coming out and saying that there is a possibility of, you know, there's a conversation about changing the relegation structure in the Liga MX. And it sounded to me like he wanted it to be like absolutely no relegation, or loosen up relegation so that teams can kind of go up and down a bit easily. So I don't know. That's going to be interesting. But to be honest, you don't really want to see teams like Chiapas and Veracruz in the league. I think they give a really negative impression, even though kind of geographically they are much needed because of the locations.
Johnny, what are your thoughts? So who do you think who's going to be relegated at the end of the season?
Honestly, I think it's just a coin flip between Chiapas and Veracruz. I think I've seen enough from Morelia that tells me they can do just enough to pick up a point or two in the final 3 games and save themselves. They do have a 1-point advantage over the other two. The other two are deadlocked at the bottom. So honestly, I think it's just going to be a coin flip between Chiapas and Veracruz. And me saying this, it'd be Veracruz. If there's ever a team and an owner that deserves to get the boot out of Liga MX, is Veracruz. They never earned their way into Liga MX. They bought out the La Piedad franchise when La Piedad had won the right to enter Liga MX, and all of the troubles that the owner Curi has created for Liga MX. I think if karma has a say, I think it's going to be Veracruz.
Well, I can't.
Jaguares and Morelia are actually 1 point above Veracruz.
Really? Well, say that again, Tom.
Jaguares, Chiapas, and Morelia are 1 point above Veracruz. So Veracruz are on their own at the bottom, but
it's so close. Man. It's just like, and that's why I think it is going to be Veracruz. But I wouldn't be surprised if this goes down to goal differential. And if it does go down to goal differential, then it might be Chiapas. Yeah, exactly. If it goes down to goal differential, there might be someone like Chiapas who has the worst goal differential. So that's something to keep an eye on. Yeah, I'm still saying Veracruz, but yeah, no, like Tom just mentioned it. Have to keep an eye on it. But
you guys probably know it more. The goal differential, is that for just this season, or the goal differential over the 3 years that we're counting as the points?
I'm pretty sure it's the 3 years. I'm pretty sure.
Okay.
Because when I looked at the goal differential for Chiapas, I believe it was at 1. So I believe that encompasses all those seasons. I'm pretty sure. We'll have to double what it is. All right. So Tom. So we're all saying. So Tom, what was your? So I said Veracruz. I guess we all said Veracruz. Wow. So we'll see if that happens, guys. Let's go over the weekend scores really quickly. We had Xolos who beat Chiapas 2-1, thanks to Moises Munoz basically gifting a goal to Aviles Hurtado for Xolos' first goal of the match.
The star of that game was another Munoz named Iram.
Iram Munoz. Yeah, that's also something to keep an eye on. Is that through injuries in Xolos' roster, there have been 2 young Mexicans, Iram Munoz and also Carlos Vargas, who have stepped up. And although they aren't very exciting players to me, they've done a solid job holding back that back line and reinforcing that defense. I think that's something for Mexico fans to keep an eye on, especially since Munoz is 21 and Vargas is 18. So that's something to keep an eye on.
Oh!
And I think something just hockey-related happened. Necaxa beat Veracruz 1-0. León, they beat Morelia 2-1. And then, Tom, give us a little update. Atlas with the draw against Santos. Santos' 9th draw of the season. Tell us, Tom, you were there in Guadalajara. What was the atmosphere like? What was the match like?
No, it was great. I think these Easter matches, the double game week during Easter, Semana Santa, I think 47,000 for Atlas against Pumas. I think there was about 35,000 for Atlas against Santos. So, yeah, good. I thought that Santos should have won. They just couldn't close out the game. They needed the second goal. And I thought Atlas were pretty disappointing, to be honest. I didn't think they deserved to get the draw in the end. But to be fair, they fought. But I don't know. I said from the start of the season, I just think Atlas are a mid-table team. I'd be surprised if they make the playoff. But those are the kind of games you need to win against Santos at home if you are going to make the playoff. But we'll see. Atlas have got 2 home games left, so it'll be interesting to see. I think it'd be honestly a massive for Profe Cruz to guide this team, this Atlas team, to a playoff would be a big achievement. Why? Because I think player for player, I don't think Atlas are a playoff team. So I think Profe Cruz deserves praise, especially with the way he's played the young Mexican players.
Profe Cruz has always been to me one of the best Liga MX managers. I know he didn't have a good time at Monterrey, which I think was his the biggest club he has managed. But in my book, anyone who's able to take a Cancun-based Atlante to win Liga MX and then win CONCACAF Champions League with the kind of squads that Atlante put out, whatever manager can do that must be a great manager. Yeah, so much respect from my part to Profe Cruz.
But I think I wrote about this the other week. But I think you look at what Cruz did with Atlante, and you look at what the Atlas team has got now. I honestly think it's much harder now for a team like Atlas that hasn't spent a lot of money in the market to do something like that compared to a few years ago. Because I just think, like I wrote the other week, I think the quality of the Liga MX is going up. You got clubs like Tigres that are splashing a lot of money. I mean, and I think that's happening throughout the league. So, yeah, I think he deserves a lot of praise for what he's done with his Atlas team.
Well, Tom, if Atlas does find a way to make it in the top 8, then you have potentially 2 different teams to go visit during the playoffs. I know it's sometimes in Guadalajara in the past, even that was your biggest complaint, is not having playoff teams and playoff games to go to. But this could be actually pretty exciting for you. So,
well, Chivas is only going to give him one. Chivas will only give him 1 game to go to. And their quarterfinal.
I'll try. Johnny, we'll have to... Go ahead.
It'll probably be a Clásico Tapatio again.
Oh, that'd be great. I'm down for any kind of Clásico in the playoffs.
Atlas to the semifinals.
I don't know. I can't see it. We'll see.
All right, guys. So speaking of Guadalajara, Pachuca had a 0-0 draw with Chivas. Toluca with a 1-1 draw with Monterrey. And then such a
good game to watch.
John, any thoughts on that match? If you were watching it?
Yeah, it was a very exciting game to watch. To me, Edwin Cardona is one of the most talented players in the entire league.
I mean, I think he can be the most talented player in the league when he decides to be.
I said it before. Guido Rodriguez is what excites me the most about possible transfers next season for America. But if America can make a push for Edwin Cardona, that would be amazing. That would be a real substitute for the Sambuesa. Somebody that can create danger. Not just finish them up like Oribe. Cardona is such a talented player. Anytime he gets the ball, he's going to shoot. It doesn't matter if he's standing next to his goalkeeper. He's going to have a shot on goal. Very exciting to watch. and then Toluca, top of the league, still going strong in their Centenario. This is a very important season for them. We said it at the beginning of the season, and I think that Centenario emphasis is still creating a buzz in Toluca, and they're gonna, even though they probably have Liguilla already qualified, I think they're still going to go strong all the way out to secure that top spot in their Centenario.
Well, this season, I mean, the title's completely up for grabs. We'll have to see what happens. It's definitely a tough one to predict. In an already very unpredictable Liga MX tournament, it's just everything is completely up for grabs, even the playoff spots at this point.
I don't know, I'm just throwing this out there, but Toluca never, even though they're top of the league, I still can't put my finger on exactly why, but they don't convince me.
Yeah.
They don't convince me that this is a team that deserves to be right at the top of the Mexican game. I mean, I know Talavera probably the best goalkeeper in the league, or arguably the best. But aside from that, I'm looking through the team, and it's like, I know their experience and stuff. Barrientos is obviously good.
Gabriel Auche put in a good game. Gabriel Auche put in a really good game against Monterrey on Sunday. He besides the goal, he had 2 or 3 really dangerous runs into the box where they gave him the through ball, and I think Auche is very interesting to watch, especially when you have a good striker in front of him. I think Auche can create a lot of dangerous plays for your team.
But I do get what Tom says. That when you think of someone of a Liga MX team that's at the top of the table, you think you see someone like Toluca, and it's just you try to think back, like, all right, what dominant, what really stood out, what really was like exciting and like thrilling about this team. And it's tough to really think about a lot of matches, even though they have 8 wins so far, and and I think maybe it has a lot to do. Maybe it's the team being inspired by the fact that it is a centennial celebration, that they have the new stadium. Maybe it's a lot of that's inspiring. And it's hard to think of more than it's tough for a couple wins where they just really. And I get that. I understand that.
Yeah, I think it's the experience as well. I mean, I think over half the team are over 30. So I just think they know how to manage the games. But it's not, I don't know, I just think from a neutral point of view, it's not kind of like, they don't play a brand of football that's really excites me, if you know what I mean.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think coming up on Friday, it's going to be second place Xolos hosting first place Toluca. So that could be a big statement win for either team. I think that game could be the one game that either team takes. Say, hey, I'm a title contender.
No, that'll be so. We'll both be there. That'll be exciting. We'll be making the trip down to Tijuana. I forget whose turn it is to carp. So it's my turn to drive down the border, and then we make our 4-hour-long journey across the border.
I hope I don't get deported by Mexican officials.
Johnny, that's all up to you. That's all up to you, Johnny. That's all up to you if you want to start any arguments or not. All right, guys. Before Johnny and I argue about the way he approaches border patrol the way down to Tijuana games, let's talk about the.
When I came from the US to Mexico, you just walk in. Like there's nobody even asks you anything.
Well, not when it's Johnny Rico.
Not when you're John Tom. Not when you're. Let's not get into this. Let's not get into why Johnny makes things difficult when we go to Mexico.
Why Johnny gets deported?
Yeah, why Johnny gets sent back to the U.S. when we're trying to cross over. All right, guys, let's talk about the Europeos really quickly. I guess I'll do a little bit of a rundown. Yeah. Marco Fabian, he scored his 5th goal this season. This was after having some injury problems. And his return, and he scored an awesome golazo. Probably, and I'm sure this will be one of the best goals of his career, especially when you think about the venue, especially when you think about him, even though him and Eintracht Frankfurt lost to Dortmund, just the way that he hit that was incredible, and I think that's something to bring up. You have someone like Diego Reyes, him and Espanyol had a 1-0 win over the weekend. And I think this is a central defensive player from Mexico who enough attention. Maybe it has a lot to do with the fact that he isn't scoring goals or having an assist, but I think it's something to bring up that this is a still somewhat young Mexican player who's getting regular playing time for a La Liga team that's pushing for Europa League spots. It looks like Granada's going to go down, despite the fact that Tony Adams has stepped in. I don't know who. Tom, can you tell? I talked to you about this earlier today, but what can you tell us about Tony Adams and those? Because I didn't grow up knowing much about Tony Adams just because I didn't really watch English football. So
you mean Anthony? Good old Anthony?
It's a good old Anthony. Tom, what can you tell us about Tony?
Tony Adams, former Arsenal centre-back, played for England. Big guy, physical guy, proper passionate. But this is like his first managerial job, and I don't think he speaks much Spanish. So you need when people are taking it with a bit of kind of humour, like almost like funny. But yeah, we'll see with the show.
Good thing there's no real key tactics that you have to tell your goalkeeper. Stand between the posts and block balls.
But I mean, I think this is one of the themes with the Mexicans in Europe now. I think obviously with the seasons running down, I think for me anyway, almost my attention's turning to what's next. Do you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And I think that with Joe, it's going to be a massive summer, like perhaps the defining summer of his career. This. I mean, we know that it's been a bit of a letdown in terms of the teams that he's played for so far in Europe. So where's he going to end up? Is anybody going to come in for him? I think he's going to be an EU citizen soon. So, that should open doors. But it's really the litmus test of where he's at and what he's proven so far in Europe. But not just Ochoa. I think that Herrera and, I think over at Porto, it's been, I'd say, a bit underwhelming, the 3 Mexicans this season.
Yeah.
Do you agree?
Yeah, I would agree. I think that Gatito has proven that he is at least one of the more exciting options on the wings. I think he's proven that in a lot of matches for Porto, but Herrera, despite the captains on the team. It's just hasn't been his best season. If we look at someone like Layun, who was playing some thrilling soccer last year, I think he was the leading. He had more for a certain period of time last year, and now, I mean, there's no indication that he has any injury problems. There's no indication that he's recovering from an injury, and he isn't making the game day rosters. He's not even on the bench. He hasn't even.
Can we get Layun back? We need a left back.
Yeah, I mean, it wouldn't.
Osmar Matic, Jesus Christ.
He wouldn't be entirely. I mean, I think Layun's been unlucky because I think the change of manager affected him, and I think he's done. For me, he's done everything asked of him, and it's just the manager doesn't like him. But I think for me, Tecatito, I mean, the stage he's at his career now, the club he's at, I want to see him playing week in, week out. I want to see him being one of the top goal scorers in the Portuguese league, even though he's on the wing. Obviously, I want to see him right up there, and it's just he's not fully convinced me. The same as Raul Jimenez. I mean,
yeah. Well, Jimenez, I think it's.
Can we get him back?
Johnny just wants to bring everyone back. But with Jimenez, it's difficult too because Jimenez has had a lot of injury problems.
Yeah.
I was reading some article. I don't know if I'm getting the stats right here, but he's missing about 30 to 40% of the matches of the regular season because of these injury problems. And once again, he would be a backup. He would be on the bench in recent matches, but it's just once again those issues have kept him off the roster, and it's disappointing. I mean, we also look. I mean, it was also in general it was kind of a disappointment. Chicharito also had injury problems. John, but he didn't get a chance to play for Villarreal because of injury problems.
Yeah.
So
hey, Jonathan Dos Santos is going to put a camp in LA.
Yeah, he is going to. For those of you in LA who are wondering, yeah, he is going to put a camp together with Gio. That was the big thing. But
no, I think you look at them. You look at Jonathan Dos Santos, and you think he's had a great season for Villarreal.
He has actually. Yeah.
You know, I think Ray is like you mentioned before, Cesar. I think this is his. I wouldn't say breakout. I'd say consolidation season.
Yeah.
He's proven that he's got the level of talent to play in La Liga.
Mm-hmm.
Not probably not for Barcelona, but he's got that level. And I think Marco Fabian the same. It's really been a season where he's shown that he's good enough to play for a good Bundesliga team. But yeah, I think the main issue is like, for example, with Guardado and Moreno. I know it's good to watch them and stuff, but it's almost I'm getting a bit bored by it now because I know both those players are probably better than the Eredivisie. You know what I mean? And it's no surprise to me at all that they're doing well every week because they're very good players. You know what I mean? So I don't know. I'd like to see a few of the Mexican players and some from the Mexican league now, go over there and challenge themselves and, and I don't know, freshen it up, the scene over there in Europe.
Yeah. I guess what I'm saying is we need some of those young players to make the move to Europe because a lot of these guys we mentioned, I mean, if you're looking at the Herrera, Layun, we're talking about Guardado, Moreno, John Dos Santos, these aren't exactly guys who are in their early 20s. I know Tecatito's a little bit younger, but these are guys who are getting a little bit older. You want to see him step up, and I think what would help, and I guess make things more exciting, is if we see some of those young Liga MX players who are capable. We know a lot of those young Mexican players are capable of making the leap to Europe. We want to see them make the leap, and hopefully this summer. All right, so let's wrap up.
Just don't touch America squad.
Oh, don't worry, Johnny. We'll be sending over Linus. We'll be sending over Edson Alvarez. Don't you worry. Maybe Barchesín might be making the leap soon, but I'm sure you're not too bothered about that.
I'd rather see Linus go play at the U20 of America than to Europe. Because at the U20 he can fully develop for our club.
We'll save that for a different podcast, Johnny. All right, guys. Let's wrap up the show. We got a few minutes left. Really quickly, let's talk about the CCL fight. I guess we have let's just talk about what our predictions are going to be. We have the first leg between Tigres and Pachuca this Tuesday. It's going to be in Monterrey. Tom, give us a prediction. What are you going to see? What do you think is going to happen for this first leg of the CCL final?
I think it's going to be interesting. I think the fear from the Pachuca point of view is that Tigres do to them what they've just done to Pumas and what they've just done to Chivas. I mean, Tigres right now absolutely full of confidence, and I just think it's absolutely vital for Pachuca that they keep the score down and keep it tight. And it goes almost against the playing philosophy of Diego Alonso and Pachuca. So I mean, I think for me that's the big test. Can Pachuca almost change the mentality, and can they contain Tigres in that first leg? Because for me, with Pachuca, not scoring many goals and not with a lot of confidence right now, it could all be over after the first leg. This.
Yeah. Tom, let's hear. So what's your prediction? What do you think? Give us a scoreline for that first leg.
I think 1-0 Tigres. I mean, the other side of the coin is that I don't think Tuca Ferretti is going to risk too much either, because he knows it's a 2-leg final, and he knows that the Pachuca have got talent, especially down the wings with Chucky Lozano.
Mm-hmm. Johnny, give us your predictions for that first leg.
2-0 Tigres, and then they see out the result in Pachuca.
All right. Well, I'm going with the 2-1 win for Tigres tomorrow.
So you're betting that Pachuca will do something they haven't done in the last 5 games.
I think so. I think that they'll. I think recognizing the fact that they haven't had the best season, and that they don't know if they're going to get a title. I think someone's going to have to step up and maybe try to make a case. Maybe make a case for the potential, especially to compensate for the fact they might not win I guess I think someone might do well in order to compensate for the fact that they might not chase the Liga MX title this season. So that's why I think they'll be able to get a goal, maybe have a fighting chance. All right, and then guys, to wrap up the show, Tom, I guess we'll give it to you here. We have the Copa MX final, just one leg. This isn't a 2-legged affair. This is just one leg between Chivas and Morelia this Wednesday in Guadalajara. Tom, are you excited? Is Guadalajara excited for this? I know it's a Copa MX, but what's the mood like out there? I don't know if you've been able to recognize it, but tell us anything and everything about that final.
It is a weird final. I think there is hype. I think the institution Chivas undoubtedly they're excited. They see it the first chance in the history of Estadio Chivas to win a trophy at the stadium. So I think that's big. But it's weird because it's like Chivas aren't going to play a first team. They're going to play a lot of the fringe players. Mixed in there. Alan Pulido will play. I think Zaldivar will play as well, and Chofis. But it's like also Morelia. They're not going to play a first team because they're absolutely desperate to avoid relegation. They're not even sending some of the first team squad. So it's almost like a weird little final this now. Where
I can explain the weirdness. At this point, it's almost embarrassing for Chivas to even win the Copa MX title. It'd be even more embarrassing for them to lose it. But I think there's, look at Chivas.
How is it embarrassing to win a title?
Okay, they won their second Copa MX under Almeida, but the fact still remains they've choked in the quarterfinals of the Liga MX, and the Cruz Azul won.
But that's completely separate, though.
Cruz Azul.
I don't understand how that's
completely separate.
I don't understand how that's embarrassing to win a title, though. What's embarrassing about that?
Remember when Cruz Azul won the Copa MX? Did that save them from the embarrassment of not winning the league? Of course not.
No, but nobody's saying they're related. Why are they related?
Yeah, I don't think there's anything related about that. I don't know if there's no shame about that.
Cruz Azul, the season they won the Copa MX, if the taunting ever stopped for Cruz Azul because they won a Copa MX title. They're
separate competitions. They're separate competitions, Johnny. They're entirely different separate competitions, and
they are. But
the club's worried. If the club's worried about a bit of taunting online, then I think it's got big problems. So
that's pretty true.
Just like Cruz Azul last. It's like Cruz Azul last. So you might be right, Johnny.
Actually,
listen. The thing is with this competition, right? First of all, if Chivas lose, there will be an element of embarrassment. Why? Because they're playing at home and they're playing a Morelia team. They're going to be playing the fringe squad. That's fair enough. But at the same time, what you've got to understand on a playing side of you, on a sporting side of things, is that Mateus Almeida has used this competition for fringe squad to be able to bolster his squad, create competition for places. So it's been absolutely vital since Mateus Almeida took over to have a team play into the later stage of the Copa MX. Why? Because it creates the inter-squad competition that has elevated Chivas higher in the league. So I don't know. Obviously you can do some memes and all that, memes or whatever, but at the end of the day, it's got a real value, this competition.
Wait, no. It's got even less value because there's no more Copa Libertadores ticket on the line. It's got even less value than it did when Cruz Azul won it.
But did you listen to what I said? just then.
Yeah, the French players, the young players, I did, but
does that
still,
not make sense to you?
It does.
Well, there you go.
But
That's it. You don't need to Libertadores, all that. It doesn't matter. The fact is, that's what it's used to.
It does matter,
and it's a big positive.
I think the only team that cares about comments being made online right now is Cruz Azul, as we've seen with some of the blocking that's been going on Twitter right now.
but I mean, Johnny, it's not gonna save Chivas from the 10-year drought without a title. Of course not. But
you know what also creates competitions for spots in a starting lineup? Inter-squad scrimmages. So are you telling me that the Copa MX...
Johnny, I don't know where you're going with this. I know where you're going with this. It's because you want to poke fun at the fact that
it's just not how it works. That.
Anyway, guys, we could argue about this for a while, and I know I'll probably argue with Johnny about this for a while at some other point, probably on Friday night as we're making the drive down to Tijuana to watch the match against the Luca. But we'll nip this in the bud right now. Guys, any final thoughts before we wrap up tonight's show? We'll go over. Johnny, I'll go over to you first. Johnny, any final thoughts? It could be about Chivas if you want it to be. It's okay. But any final thoughts for tonight's show?
Final thoughts. I think Xolos are going to get a big win on Friday, and I think they're going to push to become a title contender. We've seen Xolos play very well, but I don't think we've ever talked about Xolos in the title contender slots that we do. A team like Tigres that's outside of the playoff zone. We've never mentioned the number 2 team in the league like we mentioned Tigres, but I think Friday Xolos makes that statement, and I think we start talking about them in the title contender ways.
But we'll see if we'll bring them up on Monday if they do get that win. Tom, last thoughts.
Yeah, I'm going bed, me. I was kept up by bloody. They were playing banda music next door till like 3:30. It happens about on average twice a week, and I'm not. I'm not the type who complains about this kind of thing, but it's like, oh man, I'm tired.
Don't go to bed just yet. The Ducks are playing in the playoffs in the Liguilla of the NHL.
Tom, did you hear that? The Ducks are playing.
Yeah.
All right, guys. Johnny, thank you so much. Tom, thanks so much. Thank you to everyone who watched the show. Thank you to everyone on the YouTube comments. I know Weasel usually does a much better job of pointing out the different comments and what people are saying, but I don't know. I'm too lazy. I'm too lazy.
Yeah.
He usually puts cumbia behind that. Maybe I'll play some air like.
At least beatbox a cumbia out.
I know. I was playing a little cumbia bass right there. Anywho, all right, guys. Thank you, and until next time, we'll see you on the next edition of the Mexican Soccer Show. Have a good night, and we'll see you all next week.